Hello. In this lesson, we are focusing on factors that affect diffusion. We are in the exchange and transport topic, and you will remember hopefully that in last lesson, we were talking about what makes an effective transport system in the lungs, and we also focused on the different substances that are transported around our body. So if you can write down this heading, pause the video if needed, and we'll get straight on with things. Now, this topic is only found in the triple, and actually it's not that difficult, but you will need a calculator. Okay, so what I would like you to do, just to help you go back and think about what you learned last lesson, first of all, without looking at your notes, see if you can list 7 different substances that we spoke about that are transported around the body. And then, can you think of 5 features of the alveoli that make them excellent gas exchange surfaces? So try and write them down, and then go and have a look at your notes. Okay, how did you do? Okay, if you made any mistakes, that's brilliant, because those are the bits that you need to make sure that you work on over the coming days. So let me just have a look over here. So the first thing, the different substances: oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, mineral ions, urea, and of course dissolved food molecules. And hormones are also transported around the body. So how many of those did you get? 5, 6? Just remember the ones that you are not getting and working on those, that you'll get 7 out of 7. Okay, a great revision card question. Okay, and our second question was, what makes the alveoli such a great gas exchange system? And for this one, this is really pulling out this set of notes that you made in your books last lesson. Now, I have come up with a devious way, because I struggle to remember these things sometimes, believe it or not. But I find little ways, little memory hooks to help me remember some of these things. So I want to share one with you. Now, Shaun the Sheep, bit of a favorite over Christmas maybe. But if you remember the word lamb TV, let's see if this helps you. So a large surface area created by the alveoli. There's a layer of moisture to allow the gases to dissolve and move across the wall, or the cells of the alveoli. It has a really good blood supply, so that it maintains that concentration gradient, so the diffusion happens quicker. It's thin and freely permeable, not only the alveoli, but of course the capillaries that the oxygen is diffusing into, or the carbon dioxide is diffusing out of. And also it's ventilated, so it's kind of driving this gas moving in and out. So if you remember this little acronym, I'm sure it will help you along. Okay, right, so let's go on to today's work. So you don't need to write this down, but what we are going to be looking at is, what are the factors that affect diffusion, and we're going to be able to explain how surface area and concentration affect diffusion, and use something known as Fick's law. So our keywords are concentration and Fick's law. Now let's focus on concentration for a moment, a word we often hear in chemistry. And by the way, I'll tell you when to stop and write down, so you don't need to write everything down unless you want to go back. Of course, you're welcome to. So we know that concentration is the amount of substance in a volume. So if I have a 50 ml jug of water, it's about how much salt is in that water. So it can be, if it's salt, it can be in grams per centimeter cubed. Remember, centimeter cubed is written, and actually they've made a mistake in this one. If I use the per sign, then I go centimeter cubed, not -3. If I don't use this the per sign, then I do centimeter minus 3. Okay. And also remember, sometimes it's decimeter cubed. So just look at the question to see whether you've got to convert something to centimeters cubed or decimeter cubed. The other really important thing to remember is centimeter cubed is the same as milliliter, decimeter cubed is the same as liter. Okay, now from chemistry, you know that the concentration is the mass of a solute divided by the volume of the solution. The mass of the salt in a certain volume of water. Okay, and the units from that from those variables, grams per decimeter cubed in this situation. So take a minute and see if you can work out what is the glucose concentration if I use 20 grams of glucose dissolved in 160 centimeter cubes of water. And don't forget to add in the units. Okay, nice, easy calculation there. Okay, so now we're going to, for a moment, go back to this old gem of diffusion. So we know that diffusion is all about particles moving from over here, a high concentration, to an area of low concentration until they are spread out. And I tend to use the word particles because then it doesn't matter if it's atoms or molecules. I'm not going to get into any trouble if I get it wrong. So diffusion is the movement of particles from an area of higher to lower concentration. Remember, it's relative, so the ERs are quite important in certain answers. And because it's going from a high concentration and it's coming down, we say it's going down a concentration gradient. And of course, the steeper the concentration gradient it is, the quicker the diffusion is going to be. Here's another way of putting it. Over here, we're going from a high concentration on the right to a low concentration on the left. And my question to you is, why is this not osmosis? Of course, because we're not talking in this example of water molecules moving. For osmosis, there's got to be that semi-permeable membrane, which there is in this diagram, but there's also got to be the water molecules. Remember H2O, O for osmosis. And how did we go? Osmosis is the movement of water through a semi-permeable membrane from an area of high concentration to low concentration. All you TikTokers out there. Okay, and that's just a reminder. This is really topic number 1 revision, but it is obviously relevant and applied in this topic. Now, this graph is really important. So if we look at the difference in concentration, if we've got a very big difference in concentration, so I'm spraying perfume in a room that hasn't had any perfume in it for a while, there's going to be a massive difference in the concentration. And that is going to cause the rate of diffusion to happen far quicker than if there was a little bit of perfume in the room. So we get this straight line graph, and the diagonal always tells me that it's directly proportional. That's a little light bulb that needs to go off in your head. So the rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the concentration difference. So if one increases, the other increases. If the one decreases, the other one decreases. Nice and simple. Okay, let's just talk about surface area for a moment, because remember we said that anytime we have folds like in the alveoli, we're increasing the surface area for diffusion. So it's going to speed things up. So if I have a bigger surface area, I'm going to have a faster rate of diffusion. Smaller surface area, smaller rate of diffusion. Now what I'd like you to do is, in a moment, pause the video and see if you can answer this question by showing mathematically how you work this out. So the question is, which cube has the biggest surface area to volume ratio? Now think back to what you've learned about rates of reactions and surface area in chemistry so that you don't fall into the trap and say it's the biggest one. So I'm going to give you a moment. Show your calculations under the 3 columns, 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter, and 3 centimeter, and also think how many sides there are in a cube. When you're done, you can purple pen your answers. Okay, so hopefully we can remember the equation. So the key thing is it's 6 times 1 times 1. And don't forget the units, centimeters cubed for area. Okay, the next one, volume is length times breadth times height. So it's 1 centimeter cubed, 8 centimeter cubed, and 27 centimeters cubed. Now, to work out the surface area to volume ratio, this is what they're really looking for. You take, for the first one, the answer of 6 centimeters squared to 1 centimeter cubed. So it's a 6 to 1 ratio. In the next one, I get 24 to 8, and I simplify that to a 3 to 1 ratio. And the final one, 54 to 27, which is simplified to a 2 to 1 ratio. So we can see there, the biggest surface area to volume ratio is actually the smallest cube. It's the opposite to what we want to logically think. Okay, always remember that. That's so vital for biology. So make sure you've purple penned your answer so that we know that you've checked your work. And that, of course, is the answer. Okay, now another important factor that influences the rate of diffusion is the distance that the substance has to travel through. So it says that the further the particles have to diffuse, the slower the rate of the diffusion is going to be. So if I increase the thickness of a membrane, the rate of diffusion is going to decrease. And that makes absolute sense. And that's why, to increase the rate of diffusion, we have a single layer of cells that the oxygen's got to go through over the alveoli and over the capillary. So in this case, the relationship is inversely proportional. When we have inversely proportional, we show it as a denominator like this. So if the diffusion increases, the thickness of the membrane decreases. And if the thickness of the membrane increases, the rate of diffusion decreases. So inversely proportional means opposites. Now, all of this is summarized in what we call Fick's law. And I know in the video I've covered up the law. I do apologize for that. This is the bit I need you to copy down. This equation sums up Fick's law. Fick's law says the rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the surface area times by the concentration difference over the thickness of the membrane. So if anything on the numerator increases, the rate of diffusion increases. If anything on the new denominator at the bottom increases, the rate of the diffusion decreases. So take a moment and copy this down, and then we are going to apply this. Okay. Now, I'm going to start part 2 of this video, giving you an opportunity to answer some questions, show your working, and then to purple pen it.